Hi guys, how are you? Today we are from group 8. We're talking about language and gender. Okay guys, so for the first part, I will talking about the definition of language and gender. In the study of linguistics, language is defined as a system of spoken or written symbols that are used by human beings as a means of communication in the form of sound. In other words, we can say that language is a tool of communication. For gender, gender is a range of characteristics used to distinguish between males and females, particularly in the cases of man and woman, and the masculine and the feminine attributes assigned to them. So, if we're looking for the definition of language and gender, we can say that language and gender is an area of study within sociolinguistics and applied linguistics and related fields that investigates varieties of speech associated with a particular gender or social norms for such gendered language. So, what is gendered language? So guys, actually gendered language is commonly understood as a language that has a bias towards a particular sex or social gender. In English, this would include using gender-specific terms referring to professions or people, such as businessman or congressman or policeman, or using the masculine pronouns like he, him, his to refer to people in general, such as a doctor should know how to communicate with his patients. In our daily life, we can spot gendered language. However, there are some examples which people may not have considered before. The most obvious is the use of language that has a bias toward one of the sex, usually male, for gender-neutral concepts. As in the earlier example, where a gender-neutral subject, a doctor, is assigned a masculine pronoun, his patients, this also includes the job titles that are gender specific, such as policeman, policewoman, when there is no need to specify the sex of the person. That's why nowadays we tend to have a gender neutral terms for professions. For example, like a chairperson, police officer, entrepreneur, or maybe gardener, like that.
The relation between language and gender is vice versa, because they reflect each other. The relation is affected by the social cultural values. In its society, men and women are taught and treated in the different ways, such as parenting, conversation, behave, role in society, and other ways of imparting knowledge. Therefore, it constructs or shapes their manner and characteristics of each other. The manner and the characteristics influenced men and women to speak as what their society expects them supposed to be. For example, women are socialized to speak with soft and tender voice than men. Gender is not something people born with, but people learn to perform and act based on the expected norms of society. Feminine and masculine are socially constructed concepts that through a set of repeated acts have become natural. There are many social forces to determine the ways different genders are supposed to communicate with each other. As these norms are the result of the present hierarchy in society, adopting them leads to challenging the social orders which originate these patterns. For example, in the past, men were superior or dominant in many important aspects in the society. Therefore, they tend to use competitive language. It reflects their general interest in acquiring and maintaining status. while women were educated to be the family image. Therefore, they tend to use cooperative language. It reflects their preference for harmony, relationship, and feelings. Men and women do speak in the same language, but with different characteristics. These different characteristics are constructed by the social and cultural norms. The norms of appropriate ways of talking for different genders are the example of the concept of power in language. According to Tannen in 1990, differentiating men and women as belonging to different subcultures as they have been socialized to do so since childhood, where parents use more words about feelings to girls and use more verbs to boys. This then results in the varying communicative styles of men and women. The relationship between language and gender is not a direct one, but one mediated by the social practices and activities that come to be gendered in particular communities or cultures. People gradually learn how to use language in specific social situations and develop communicative competence. Therefore, language and social norms are dynamic and interconnected. As people use language in respect to these norms, it plays a vital role in manifesting and sustaining social standards and can be a tool for reproducing power relations and gender operations.
Okay, class. Now I'm gonna to explain you about deficit model by Robin Lakoff. Women language features were discussed in this part. This book from Robin Lakoff was primarily discussed the language differences that are possessed by women. I mean, language and linguistic different linguistic features that are different from men. So we are going to discuss the features one by one. The first one is women tend to use hedges. For example, kind of, sort of, it seems like, the word like that are called hedges. Hedges are basically used to lighten the tone of assertive statements. For example, he was kind of rude to me last night. A woman would say he was kind of rude to me last night instead of saying he was rude to me last night, or it seems she doesn't like me at all, or he was sort of old fashioned, or she will say it seems like she is an arrogant girl. She was kind of mean to me yesterday. She was kind of mean to me instead of saying she was mean to me. And then the second, tag questions. Tag questions are the question like, you don't mind eating this, do you? I mean, where you put tags after the statements, these are called tag questions, and they mostly use tag questions in their speech. And then the third, rising intonation on declaratives. Women use question intonation and declarative sentences. Women make declarative statements into questions buried in the pitch of the voice at the end of the statement, expressing uncertainties. I give you an example. I think we should do this. This is a declarative statement, or I'm drinking water. Again, a declarative statement, but it ends with a high intonation, perhaps to some degree implying some form of uncertainty. The fourth is empty adjectives. Women also convey their emotional reaction rather than give specific information by using empty adjectives. Empty adjectives, it's a group of adjective in terms of vocabulary, and it is indicating speakers' approbation or admiration for something, such as gorgeous, lovely, and so on. I give you the example. Ah, how adorable she is. It was a gorgeous meal, John. Uh, so these adjectives are called empty adjectives. And then fifth, British color terms. Women also seems to talk like a lady, that shown in the choice of lexical items by making far more discrimination in naming colors, or called British color terms. For example, mauve, turquoise, mustard, magenta, and aquamarine. Okay, next is intensifier, which is used to emphasize or strengthen the meanings of the following words. I'll give you the example. I like him so much. The word so here is used to emphasize or strengthen that she very likes him. The next is hypercorrect grammar. Women use hypercorrect grammar. What is hypercorrect grammar? Using the proper grammar, and they avoid the word like ain't or double negation because they try to use the proper and the higher variety of the language, so they use correct grammar. Example for the negation, I haven't got no time for supper. A man could say like that, but a woman would say, I haven't got any time for supper. She will use the proper grammar. By using more standard speech form, women can protect her face and the address's face. Next is use of super polite forms by women. Women use super polite forms in their speech, using indirect questions and euphemism. I'll give you the example. For indirect questions, could you tell me where Market Street is? And would you tell me where the toilet is? Yeah. And what does it mean by euphemism? A euphemism is a polite expression used in place of words or phrases that might otherwise be considered harsh or unpleasant. For example, passed away instead of died, powder your nose instead of go to the toilet. To be polite is a psychological aspect of women because they are mostly repressed in their houses, offices, schools, so this could be the reason of their excessive use of polite forms. Then, avoidance of strong swear words. Women avoid strong swear words and they don't abuse as much as men do because they had using these words or abuses. And the last is emphatic stress. It occurs when women want to strengthen an assertion. In stressing the opinion in written text, women may use italic, bold, coloring, repeat, capital letter, or typing with longer letter to give more emphasis or strengthen of those words. Women tend to speak in italic, Speaking in italic means when you emphasize on certain words, when you put stress on certain words to emphasize. For example here, Deva is very rich. Okay guys, so far so good, or so far from good? Still too abstract? Okay, if the material is still too abstract, maybe my friend Indri will give you further information about it. So Indri, please.
Color specific perception by women and men. There are 2 points of view for the explanation. So let us see in the picture first. Okay, so from the picture we can see that is the reality of women and men. Women see red as scarlet and dark red, but men will always say that is red, and that's it. Like men see that is purple, but the women will say no, that is lavender, that is mauve, that is eggplant, that is plum, and so many others. Here we have 2 points of view of the explanation on why women and men are seeing a color differently. So the first is from Israel Abramov. In his logical study, he stated that women are more adept or sensitive at distinguishing between subtle gradation than men. And women perform better at hearing, smelling, and tasting, also distinguishing a little difference. Or in Indonesia, we call it lebih teliti. And then the second one is from Lakov. So Lakov seeing the social aspect on why women see the color differently than men. So Lakov stated that women are relegated by men, so they don't have the opportunity to decide crucial thing. So women are not expected to decide something, and color is non-crucial thing. So deciding color's name is the opportunity of women to decide something like that. Now we have avoiding swear words. So are you often hearing a woman say rude things with swearing words? Yeah, maybe nowadays we often hear that, right? Now, can you guess which one is women sentence? The first one or the second one? I guess you choose the second one, right? Oh my god, what have I done? Why didn't you choose the first one? Yeah, because the first one usually spoken by men. So why it can be happened? Yes, because in the social we have the stereotype, right? If a lady doesn't speak like a lady should, she would get negative stereotype from people around her. So if women use the first sentence, what will you think about her? Yes, like she's rude, she's impolite, like that. Wow, what do we have here? Do you see that picture? So what is your reaction? If I can hear you, I really want to hear your reaction. My reaction is like, Wow, it's so adorable. It's a cute dog. So, do you see that GIF on your screen now? Yeah, so what do you think if a man say like this? Oh, what an adorable dog! And his reaction or his attitude just like in the GIF. What do you think? You're like, ew. Right? So, then, what do you think if that statement, oh, what an adorable dog, said by a woman? Yes, it's like, it's usual. In Indonesian is biasa aja, like that, right? So, for some people, a man who said a statement like that, oh, what an adorable dog, is laughable, weird, and unusual, right? And for some people, if a woman said that statement, it's common, right? So it's just like a lady should. And that adjective that we use here, that the women use here, adorable, divine, charming, and then cute, called as empty adjectives. And empty adjectives are used just for amusement for women, like that. You are familiar with the use of that question, aren't you? Okay, just like in the picture here. This isn't too hot, is it? Nope. It is just right. This is familiar, isn't it? Okay, so I think you are familiar with this. The next one is super polite form. We know that a good girl is always polite, right? So we are going to talk about it. And now, why do women use tag? The first one is, this is a polite statement. Why this is a polite statement? Yeah, because when women use tag, it means that women don't force agreement or believe on the addressee. And then the second one is express uncertainty. Like you are uncertain with some things, like it is good, isn't it? Okay, so the next one is less confidence. So when a woman claims something but she has less confidence, like in the example, John is here, isn't he? So she's already know that John is in that place, but she doesn't have enough confidence, so she used the tag. And then we have small talk, like you are really certain that in that place is hot, for example, like sure, it's hot here, isn't it? So you just make a small talk with your friend, so you know for sure that in that place is hot, but you just want to make a small talk with him or her, like that. And then the next one, we have the talk about personal feeling, but this is like a little ridiculous, because you really think the personal things that I have headache, don't I, like that. So you really know that you have headache, but you talk to your friend, you ask to your friend, like that. And then the last one is addressee have better view. Like in the example, I had my glasses off. He was out at church, wasn't he? So the woman, now that the addressee have the better view, so she used the. So women are avoiding using order. They prefer use request because it is considered more polite. And they have to do this because the social view, because they are subordinate than men, and they have to honor men, and they have to behave like a lady should. Because if a woman doesn't behave politely, the stereotype of the environment will be like she's a rude girl, she's impolite, she doesn't honor the man, like that. And we have some sentences here, like the first one, close the door. Second one, please close the door. And then, will you close the door? And then, will you please close the door? And the last one, won't you close the door? Which one that you think more polite from these sentences? Yeah, the last one. Won't you close the door? Because it doesn't force the agreement of the addressee. And the will you please close the door is considered as polite too, but it will be more polite if you use the won't you close the door. And if you put please in that last sentence, it will be considered as super polite form. So now we are talking about intensifier. So do you find any intensifier in our title of this slide? Yes, really. So I really like using intensifier, right? So why do we use intensifier in our title? Yes, because we want to give emphasis to the title. What things that I like? Yes, using intensifier, and I really like, and I want to give emphasis on that point. Okay, so what do you think? Why do women are often using intensifier in their speech or in their writing? Yes, because they want to give emphasis on their writing. They want to give information that their writing or their speech is really important. And naturally, women is really like to be cared. They really like attention, right? And that's. Now we are moving to lexical hedging and fillers. Like what you see on your screen now, it's like really right, seriously got it, so gotcha, and so on. Honestly, not only women that use these fillers, but men are also using these fillers, right? If we are confused what to say, so we will say like really, like right, and so many others, right? So this is lexical hedging and fillers express about uncertainty. So when you use hedging or fillers, it will express your uncertainty of something, or you are confused on what you should talk about like that. And here we have hypercorrect grammar form. So why should she use hypercorrect grammar? Yes, like hypercorrect grammar is the standard form. So women are in subordinate position, so they have to follow the rules of language. They have to use the standard form. It indicates their politeness. If they use the correct form of grammar, like in the walking, the man can use walking, flying, talking, and that's not the standard form. But the women should use the standard form, like talking, walking, so it expresses their politeness. So they have to use the hypercorrect grammar because they are subordinate than men. But nowadays, women are usually talking with just talking, walking, and so many others, right? So it's different with the traditional English. And next we have emphatic stress. So what is emphatic stress? Yes, this is, we put the stress to emphasize something. So like in the picture, no, I certainly have not touched your iPad. So here the women want to emphasize in specific position or specific point. Like in the picture, she wants to express that she's never touched. So she put the emphasis on not. So she wants to tell that she really don't touch the iPad. So she used the emphatic stress on not, like that. Now we are talking about the last thing, the last but not least, is the rising intonation or declarative. So what do you think? Why do women use rising intonation in their speech? Yes, because they want to declare something, and it also expresses their uncertainty. Like in the word, I think we have to do this, but she's not sure whether they have to do that or not. And then beside of uncertainty, now again, women is in subordinate position, so they have to honor the man or people that superior than her. So declarative or rising intonation is, it can be like, wow, it's very good. So it means like she's really honor the superior position of man. So if she wants to compliment someone, usually women will use the rising intonation. It's different than men. Usually men just use flat the flat intonation, like, oh, you are so beautiful, oh, it's a good, just like that. But women are different. They really want to express it, to honor or to declare something.
The linguistic construction of gender. Linguistic construction of gender considers ways in which individuals draw from a range of linguistic resources to construct particular social identities, including gender identity. We generally treat gender as given and unalterable, automatically classifying every person we encounter as female or male without a moment's reflections. Approaching gender identity as a construction rather than as a fixed category. For examples, where women adapt to masculine contexts and men adapt to feminine contexts by using features which indirectly are associated with masculinity and femininity. For instance, women in the police force are sometimes advised to portray a masculine image, to wear bulky sweaters suggesting upper body strength, and well-worn boots to suggest they are used to hard work. They also adopt a cool distance style. They don't smile much and they talk tough. Meanwhile, men who work in department store or hairdressing salons often construct a more feminine identity in this context than when they are in the pub or the sports club. They use features which index femininity, such as affectionate terms of address and other characteristics of the cooperative discourse style associated with gossip. They avoid strong swear words, and they act as responsive and facilitative conversationalists, encouraging their addressee to talk. Approaching the construction of gender as a process, rather than regarding gender as a given category, leads to a view of individuals as constantly doing gender. Ways of expressing solidarity or informality may also be gendered as well as expressed differently among different social and ethnic groups. Every time we speak, we are either reinforcing existing norms or we are challenging them. People who do not neatly fit into standard gender categories are particularly aware of this process. So let's go to the next slide. We will talk about the linguistic construction of sexuality. Examining the relationship between language and sexuality involves considering how people construct their sexual identity as gay, heterosexual, lesbian, or bisexual. Heterosexual people typically make normative choices in most contexts, constructing themselves as feminine or masculine, and thereby signaling their sexuality. Homosexual people may use the same linguistic features to convey the same meanings in many contexts, but there is a good deal for research, especially on features of the speech of homosexual men, which indicates that they may draw on additional linguistic resources for indicating their sexual orientation through their speech. In this slide, we will talk about how heterosexual men and women use certain words to describe themselves. These are two different personal ads of man and woman. In the first advertisement, a woman describes herself as gorgeous, blonde, female 22, smart, rich, generous male for fun and friendship. While in the second advertisement, a man describes himself as an IT programmer, 26, honest and caring, curvy blonde female about 23 to 28, fun to be with, and for lasting relationship. As these two ads illustrate, heterosexual women tend to describe themselves in terms of their looks and they desire men who are well-heeled, while heterosexual men inform their readers about their occupations and desire women who are attractive. In other words, these ads draw on well-established familiar index of cultural values such as physical attractiveness for women and economic security for men. In homosexuals' characteristics, researchers have identified a number of features associated with English gay speech, including the use of stereotypically feminine vocabulary items such as defined features of pronunciation such as affrications, so that T sounds like TS, and wavy intonation and dramatic variation in pitch. But of course, it is not the case that all and only gay people use such features. According to those examples, we can learn that linguistic resources are available to everyone to use for a range of social effects. This approach encourages us to view every linguistic and non-linguistic choice as meaningful. Every time we speak, we either reinforce existing norms or we contest them. This belief explains why feminists object to sexist language.
Okay, now we are moving to sexist language. So, do you see that picture? Okay, good. I think it's so relatable in our daily life, right? So when your male friend call the girls like, "Hello guys," and then that greetings means to everyone, right? So everyone will respond like, "Oh, hello," just like that. But it is impossible for the girls to greet the boys like, "Hey girls." It's impossible, right? Because it's unacceptable for the boy, right? So do you know why? Okay, so here we are going to talk about it. Yeah, about sexist language. Because sexist language is the theory of why "hey guys" here represents the greed of both sexes. The previous picture was the example of sexist language. Because sexist language is a form of biased language. Like in the expression of "hey guys" is the masculine form. Guys means the male for the boys, but it represents the both sexes. So one sex is superior than another. It is exclude, ignore, and relegate one sex or other. We can find sexist language form in traditional English. In traditional English, the form of he, his, him is unmarked base form. So it is superior sex or gender than another, especially for women. For example, lion. Lion is unmarked form of male lion, and the female will get the second form, lioness. There are some animals imagery for boy, but it has positive meaning as the focus, like bird. Bird is an animal that can fly, so it means about boy is free to do anything. But women animals imagery have less positive meaning. Usually, the animals imagery of women illustrated by sweet but helpless animal like kitten and chick. And the focus of that animals imagery is women as the sexual object. Can we avoid to use sexist language in our speech and our writing? Yes, we can do this. But how? So when we are writing something and we want to refer to both sexes at the same time, we can use "s" in the brackets and then "he", or we can also use "she/he", or or we can use him/her or his/her. Like in the example, the teacher is the person who organizes the class, and then when we are writing, we put s in the bracket and then he. Or we can also use she/he, like that. And then in speaking, when we are speaking formally, we can say he or she or his or her, like that. Like in the example, you can see a police officer should remember that she or he is a public servant and should therefore always be polite. It is his or her duty to assist the public. So we can use the both he or she. And then we can also use they, them, their, and theirs to refer both sexes at the same time, even when a singular noun has been used. Maybe it will be unacceptable for some people, right? But it will be more safety if you are using they, them, their, and theirs, because you can't avoid to offend someone like that. Like in the example, a nurse has to be very open and understanding. They must listen to their patients. Here, we know that a nurse here, as the traditional English, a nurse here is the women. So in traditional English, we use she as she must listen to her patient. But we are in modern time of English language, so we have to avoid using that sexist language. So we have to use we may use they, them, and their or theirs to refer both sexes at the same time, even when a singular noun. Okay, there are some of traditional forms and neutral alternative, like in the example, fireman. Fireman is the male form, and then now we have the neutral alternative, that is firefighter. And then we have policeman, policewoman, policeman as the male form, and policewoman as the form of female police. And now we have the neutral alternative as the police officer. And then we have waiter and waitress, right? So now in American English we have server. In traditional form, we also have the suffix for both sexes, right? Like in traditional form of actor, we have the male form, that is actor, without suffix, and then the female form, we have actress. We have the suffix of s here, and then manager, managers. And now as the neutral alternative, actor and actress has the neutral alternative actor. Manager, managers have the neutral alternative manager. Waiter, waiters has the neutral alternative waiter. In English, we have some nouns, adjectives, and verbs with word man. And now, the nouns, adjectives, and verbs that use the word man considered as the sexist language, so we can avoid the use of that traditional form by using the neutral alternatives that we have in nowadays, like in the noun of manpower. So we can use workers, workforce, staff, personnel, human resources, and so many others. And then we have the verb of man. We can use the verb man with neutral alternatives with staff, be at, attend to. And then the last one we have adjective. Here we have the main made. So now we can use artificial and synthetic as the neutral alternatives to avoid using sexist language.
Okay, so this is the end of our video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to comment in the comment section below. Thank you guys. Have a nice day.